We're doing a Ask Me Anything session today. A warm welcome to all of you here with Ravi Kiran, who's head of engineering and quality at CAW Studios. We're doing it on a very interesting theme, which is called decoding automation. What to look for the right tool. With the advent of so many tools now, and we wanted to have a session on what kind of factors to consider when we choose the right tool. Okay, and huge shout out to Browser Stack for our previous sponsor for all our conferences and exclusive sponsor for all our community events. It's due to companies like Browser Stack that we're able to do so many of these events at such a scale and with for absolutely no cost to our attendees, right? So, huge shout out to them. So, with that, let me introduce Ravi to you. So, Ravi is head of engineering quality at CAW Studios. He has about 11 plus years experience. He's a Cypress ambassador and expert in automated testing frameworks, including Cypress, Playwright, Puppeteer, Supertest, and K6. He has a proven track record of building and leading high-performance QA teams with implementing efficient methodologies. So with that, let me call Ravi on stage now. Hi Ravi, you are on stage. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Hi.
Hi. So folks, let's do a virtual applause to welcome Ravi for this session. So you can use the emojis here and just welcome
Thank
him.
you all. Thank you again.
Love the T-shirt. Yeah, somebody people are loving the T-shirt. I made it was correct. Yeah. Well, cool. So, Ravi, let's start. Let's get straight into business. We have a few questions from the community, right? Which, uh, which I'll quickly ask you. Okay. So, we are talking about decoding automation here, and we're talking about how to choose the right automation tool for your project or for your work, right? So, fundamental question. Okay, what are the top three factors to consider when selecting an automation tool in your head?
Right. So even before that, like let's take a step back. Like why? I mean, why do you even coming into this question is something that I mean we all. I mean, even I came from that kind of started with the Selenium, Java, and all right. So then later I, at least maybe because of all the work what I have done in the company and all, at least I gained some other kind of mindset. I would say maybe that but might not work with everyone because I get a lot of exposure to the code bases as well because it's probably it might not be possible with all the individuals. So I cannot comment on that. But the thing is that before we coming to a tool, what exactly is the fundamental of choosing this tool in the first place? Like what exactly is the problem it's going to solve, right? I mean, it's if end of the day it's automation, right? It's just like mimicking a workflow, maybe the flow what how a user does. Why it does matters is that like uh, at least at my during the over my period of experience, I would say that three things I would just consider initially is that one thing, like I need to understand how this technology works. It's not I'm not talking about just the automation tool and program. I'm talking about the framework, the web framework. It can be React, it can be backend, it can be Node.js or something that it helps me to understand what are the challenges I might face even while automating these scenarios. So if you know the framework well, you get that a lot of exposure to the like what are the things you need to even consider in a tool. Suppose like Cypress and Playwright, just for example, right? So initially it is still challenging for if you're automating using Cypress for a third party, suppose like Google login or this kind of stuff, because the kind of framework they have designed by themselves to having a single domain. Then later they came up with a kind of extra setup to expose it to an other origin and all. So that kind of setup. Then later you have a Playwright which sits outside your browser, similar to Selenium, talks to your browser using WebSocket and the communication, right? So all these things does help, and these all these factors helps you to choose the right tool. And I feel that one thing that I mean, your test should be also helping the developers. It's not like you're gonna just sit some it's a kind. You should not have this kind of Chinese wall in between. Like okay, fine, developers are doing their stuff and I'm gonna do my stuff. It's not gonna work because end of the day, if you have a really good collaboration between devs and QS, that the product is gonna be it's gonna help the
Correct.
product or the feature whatever you work on, right? So
Correct.
I fundamentally believe that I have to write the test in the same code base, which where the code has source code is written. Suppose if it is a React code base for the front end, I definitely try to use either it can be Cypress or Parrot for that matter, because it's both a JavaScript based framework. So then later, if it is a for the backend, at least if it is Node, I try to use again Node based framework for API testing. Then later, if it is Java Spring Boot, I try to again write the test in Java and in the same code base. The reason I'm telling you, it also helps the developers also to run the test whenever they have made the changes by themselves locally. Like if the tests are in the code base, they can run within their laptops as well. Before we even ship the things, raise the PR, go and merge it, then you're gonna raise a bug by in your automation test. Let's try to prevent all this stuff. It's a kind of after effects all which we are you're trying to the reason we are doing automation is because to stop all this extra hurdles in between to release it to production. But if you try to minimize all this stuff at the initial stage, it will definitely help you in the over the period of time, and you also gain a lot of confidence. Like at least at this day, I say my backend, the current project which I'm working on, at least 88% of the code coverage is done, which I achieved using API tests. And I have a few of UI and end-to-end tests. It's a very lengthy test, like something sometimes it's around like 60 to 70 steps as well, but there are very few tests for the front end. I can challenge, like once the manual testing done for the specific feature, I can even go for the weekly release. Like it's hardly I have that confidence that hardly things might break. Like maybe here and there small UI issues might come up, but I'm sure like it won't break anything existing. At least the regression part. So it all this confidence you get only if you're trying to help these your CTO or engineering manager, somebody, or if the devs, all everyone should be taking into account, and they all should be utilizing this the framework, the test cases what you're writing it down, so that they can also prevent a lot of stuff before the it leaks as a bug in the later in the future. I think you're on mute, Ashutosh.
Sorry. So my next question is, while we know this is important, but how important, and if possible, share some examples, is understanding the project specific needs in choosing the right automation tool.
The project specific tool, see, for the front end, like at least at the moment, Playwright is everybody's talking about Playwright, right? For you can just blindly go for Playwright for any front end projects, for the end to end testing, at least for the UI. And again, if you want, suppose I even do for component, I even suggest for component level test, a kind of unit test for the front end components. So
Hmm.
there, Cypress is really good there, because I can write end to end test and also the Cypress test. So
Hmm.
again, and having this, what exactly the end goal you're gonna achieve, this all this matters a lot in choosing the right tool. It's not about like the features, like it's not about just the features what frameworks the tools gonna offer.
Hmm.
All this also matters a lot, and there are a lot of open source packages as well on top of it. Like Cypress has a lot of, but people picking up for Playwright at least, right? So
Hmm.
all this also matters a lot. I mean, and also suppose you have other old frameworks as well which are not being maintained properly, then again, like you
Hmm.
have to also look at the maintenance, like how the release when was the last release, and is it even funded properly.
Hmm.
If it is, if most of the tools we are using might be open source, right? Like if it is
Hmm.
that, if the devs are not keep on pushing the changes, then probably you should
Hmm.
also think about, like you don't have the maintenance, you will be facing those maintenance issues in the future.
Hmm. Got it. Understood. Uh, okay, yeah. This is my favorite question, which I actually uh, brainstormed with a few people. Is that so many tools, right? There are so many tools now. There's Playwright, there's Cypress, there's Selenium. There are a lot of other tools also, and tools are sprouting up here and there
Mhm.
every now and then, right? So, how does as testers, while choosing an automation tool, we avoid the shiny what I call the shiny object trap? Okay, this looks
Right.
very cool. This looks very new. This looks very posh. Should go with this. So, how should we avoid this trap, and what should be the paramount factor which we should keep considering?
Right. So I feel, strongly believe that web fundamentals are the very basic idea, like how it doesn't matter whatever the frameworks. End of the day, your browser is gonna be there's a web APIs which you're gonna consume those web APIs and take those actions. Suppose like click or whatever it is. So if you are really good in web fundamentals and all, none of these tools matters actually. So maybe some of these tools have the syntactic sugar, like they made things bit easier for you a little bit. Suppose like in Selenium you have to probably had a lot of logic about weights and all, like the element visibility and all the stuff, but at least Playwright and Cypress came with doing this by itself, like at least that you don't need to worry about handling these kind of cases. Maybe you can just worry about the use case which you want to automate, right? So but underneath, like it's very important for you to understand the web fundamentals, like web APIs, how your DOM structure, the window object, and there are a lot of other stuff which generally we don't know, because again I don't blame the people, because they tend to have this in Java and Selenium. They don't understand how even browser underneath it works. I believe that's the main important aspect. And if you are good at that, any tool, it doesn't matter. Like even if it doesn't have the support, end of the day it's plain JavaScript, right? You can just
Correct.
make a function for yourself and make it work.
Correct. Understood. If people have any questions, please feel to use the Q&A tab. I think some people are asking questions. I'll take those also. This is from Aniruddho. I'll take this question.
Okay.
If your team is not well versed with a language like JS, will you still insist they upskill themselves and then coordinate to be on the same page with devs, or simply code in Java as they have past experience with it? So, what's your call here? Because that's a good question in that sense.
Yes, I do face these challenges, because again, you don't get a lot of people outside who know JavaScript, right? So I do still hire people who are at least good problem solvers with Java. So I mean, I have my own bootcamp at least, and like which I came up with. I teach them the basics of JavaScript, then later the browser version of JavaScript. Then again, you have a Node version of JavaScript. So you have a lot of things again. So I teach them the fundamentals. Then after I feel that then they're really good at fundamentals, only then I teach them the framework. It can be Cypress or Playwright, whatever it is. So first they need to go through that. Then I'll give them at least like 1 to 2 months once they join in and I have these frameworks. And I know, like if you're really good, how much time it takes. If you're not that good in picking up the skills, obviously you need to doubt yourself on your capability. Like, but it's it's media. I mean, like in a medium hard. I won't say it is too tough as well. So I give ample time for them to upskill themselves, and I do help them as well whenever they have issues. And the total team is also there. Everyone, like we do only JavaScript for the front end at least. So we have a lot of people. So it's a healthy kind of culture which I have maintained in our company. So it helps them a lot. Like, I mean, at least so it's easier for them also to pick. And for that matter, like if you know a single language, end of the day, the if you're really good at fundamentals and problem solving skills, like algorithm, at least like you
Correct.
can pick any language. Like I started with Java, then I did a bit of C sharp for using Selenium for a project, then moved to Python for a little bit, then again did a Golang. Now at least I'm stable on JavaScript. Again, tomorrow if anything comes up, I don't
Mm.
hesitate, because end of the day it's the same syntax. There's just a syntax change, right? So it's the same problem solving which you need to do.
Got
Hope
it.
I
Understood.
answered that question.
Understood. Understood. This is the question which came in chat. Okay, now this is now here. Okay, this is from Aniket, right? This is an interesting question. I have one question. Currently, in my organization, my lead talks too much about memory utilization. She rejects the code if we are using array. She uses just use string, sometimes not even objects as testers. Do we really need to care about memory utilization? So, what's your thought on this? This is not a topic as such, but I think this is a good quiz question which you can attempt to answer.
So yeah, I mean, end of the day, if you are really good at coding and all, you should ideally be worrying about optimizing your code as well. Right? Cannot just write. If it works, it doesn't mean it is right. Like that's what I feel. But yeah, I
Got
mean, initially at least you should make it work. Then later worry about the
Yeah.
performance aspect as well. Yes,
Later optimize it for memory utilization.
exactly.
Okay. Now this is a question related to ROI of choosing a tool because uh, so uh, Two questions, right? Lots of three questions. How does automation ROI come into play when choosing a tool? And how should testers, let's say, evaluate that ROI? Two questions. Let's say. What is the how do they measure ROI of a tool before selecting a tool? Let's say.
Right. Again, so ROI, like, if you want to really do that, like, probably the first thing is like how you would prevent the stuff like from leaking out. So that's the first thing like which you need to question yourself, and based on that, then again you can cross question yourself like what tools will support so that I can prevent this stuff. So at least in our case, like, I told you, right, we do a lot of Node.js for the backend and SJS. So there we use the tools based on JavaScript, and so the total our tests run as part of every pull request. Whenever a developer raises a pull request, we run around like 1,000 tests of APIs, and it takes 30 minutes for me to run all those tests, which itself like it's a huge setup because I even start the databases, all the databases what the backend application needs, then run the migration, then start the application, then run my API test, which are divided into multiple shards, maybe somewhere around 14 shards, maybe. Then later, it all takes like it was a bit of effort, but the ROI which I got and the clients got is like tremendous because the at least I getting the code coverage of 88%, and it's hardly taking half an hour. And how fast I can run this test, how often I can run this test to get the feedback. The feedback time is very much important here because even if you write the test, but if it's taking hell lot of time, it's not going to make any sense, right? I mean, because the feedback time has to be faster. So try to think from that perspective and consider any tool or framework, whatever you come up with.
Got it. And this is a question from Yogendra again. How do you handle situations when stakeholders want to migrate to trending tools, but we think as, let's say, users or influencers, it will not bring enough ROI with a cost spent migration?
Right. So I even like probably once I have a word with the new clients and all, which who has a legacy Selenium tests. I mean, they do ask the same question, right? So if the things are already stable and if you have a huge test coverage, why you want to again move it at that? That doesn't make any sense, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the things are working fine. Why even
Yeah,
if it's
but let's say you are a leadership role, then you can convince the client. Let's say, but let's say I'm talking about a situation where the leadership is convinced within themselves that they want to migrate because the client is saying so. Now, how do I, as a user, convince you that okay, that this is not worth it? Right?
again see how much, so end of the day it's all about money, right? Like I mean that's what I mean, how much spend it's going to be, like divide the test into the manners, how much it's going to take, and probably the current setup, how much coverage you have it currently. But if there are any new tests, probably you can like write in the new framework whatever you want, and try to like come up with the data. I mean, end of the day the clients want data. They're not going to ask like what you feel or I feel, right? End of the day data makes sense. Like try come up with some figures and estimations, like how much manpower effort it's going to take, how much money it's going to be taking for them, and then later try to convince them. If they're still not convincible, obviously they made their mind, right? So you can't do anything there anyway.
Got it. I want to take that question now. Okay, now this is the other side. Okay, what are some of the red flags to watch for when evaluating a new automation tool? Look, what are things which we should consider as a red flag? Okay, this is what we should be pretty sure about not to consider things like that.
Right. So I'll take the example what I have it. So initially I started Cypress and Playwright together because
Hmm.
the problem was like that. Right? Cypress did not had this social login, but my application what I was having, it was you cannot log in general username and password. It's only Facebook login which you definitely have. Cypress, you cannot do it with Cypress. At the same time, I got the new player in the market, Playwright. Like I think I believe I'm the one of the few individual who started initially when they just poked out of Puppeteer. I even have a interaction with their project manager who worked with Microsoft. He used to even, like, probably when I have an issue, he used to come and debug together with me. So I felt like, Playwright wasn't that stable at that time. And that's the reason I maybe a little bit I have integrated the framework just for the login part. Then later I had all my tests in Cypress itself. So again, this is a kind of probably the experience I have, and that made force me to choose Cypress at that time. But now Cypress is more stable, and it's all about the ecosystem, right? I mean, how many people are using, like, you have extra these plugins and all, how the maintenance is all about. Now all these things factors a lot when you are choosing these tools. Like, you have a good tools as well other than the Cypress and Playwright, but they are not gaining momentum because, again, it's all about how quickly you can turn around the things faster, by without worrying about the other aspect of, probably how tough it's going to be to write a single test case that's going to matter for you as well. And I believe Playwright, as backed by Microsoft, you don't need to worry about at least the funding part of it, right? So I'm sure it's
Mm,
going to be there.
mm,
So yeah, these factors matters, like, while choosing these tools as well. Like, probably tomorrow, if what if, like, you are stuck on a version, you have a bug. At the end
mm,
of the day, it's open source, right? You have a bug,
mm.
but I mean, it's definitely needed. Like, what you gonna do? So all these things matters a lot while choosing these tools. Like, at least for now, like, if you at least raise a GitHub issue, are they gonna be coming back and fixing it probably in the near future, or else? Yeah.
Got understood. The next question is from Rakshita. She's asking about with all the buzz around Gen AI, would it be better to go with low code, no code tools? What's your take on that? Yeah, that's an interesting question.
So yeah, I mean, I think we had an last meetup as well, right? Many people came up with low code, no code tools, right?
Mm,
And I've been also people coming up with Gen AI, this low code. At the moment, at least, no tool is perfect. Don't go for that. And I mean, I feel like, all these low code, no tool tools make people lazy to learn programming. Frankly speaking, like, I mean, obviously, you are into automation. You want to do some related to programming. We shouldn't get our hands dirty, right? I mean, like, it's always better to be good at programming, like, rather than relying on some tool. Or what are you going to do if the tool itself has a bug tomorrow? No tool is perfect, right? I mean, end of the day, it's Gen AI. And what if the prompt is not correct, and it's not accurately giving you the results for how you want. So at that time, if you are a really good coder, you can have a kind of, you can solve the problems by yourself rather than relying on something, these tools. Again, that's the reason I'm saying these fundamentals are very much important. And Gen AI, yes, like, I do use it a lot in my daily life as well. It's really amazing, actually. But it's not accurate. And I believe we just discussed, like, probably people started using it like Google, like, just ask a question and try to copy paste it. It's not like that. It helps you to increase your productivity, but it's not accurate. And there is a way you need to ask a question. Again, the prompting has to be accurate. If your prompting is not right, then you're not going to get the accurate answers as well. So
yeah.
I feel like low code, no code, yes, for that matter, if the team size is small, there is no active development going on, and there are not really big application is not big enough to spend a lot of time on, like, these new frameworks and all. For there it matters. But if you have a really good application, the release cycle is huge, and you're going to make new features coming up, I sure suggest you to go with this generic frameworks. But again, you can use Gen AI to generate the code for that, and to increase your productivity faster.
Got it. Understood. Uh, that was a very interesting question. Trying to. Just a minute, please. Yeah. This is a question from Aniruddho again, I think. Uh, any idea why WebDriver IO is criminally underrated, right? He's been very, in that sense, right?
You
It
know what?
supports
Right.
web mobile and API,
Postman,
but still over it. Yeah.
yeah, Postman still underneath the total their test ecosystem, test automation ecosystem is still been using WebDriver IO. The only problem with it, actually, it is not underrated. Actually, it is really good, but just that the problem is with coming up with these new frameworks with Cypress and Playwright, and but WebDriver still underneath uses Selenium WebDriver for that matter, like this generic thing. So you have a lot of if you are already using JavaScript and you already have these new tools, why go with the old Selenium based frameworks, right? And I mean, at least today, if you still want to automate some Electron apps and all, you still have to choose WebDriver. There is no other alternative for that. So it is still not underrated. People still using it a lot, and yeah. But again, it's based on the, I mean, based on the output what you're gonna get from it. That's how it is.
Got it. Got it. How crucial is the integration with other tools in the automation ecosystem, and what types of integrations should testers look for?
I believe there are some generic anyway. People might be agreeing, right, with the reports and I mean, how faster it is for you to debug the issues if there is anything, and how the report also includes a lot of things like how developers is going to consume the report to debug the issues and fix the bugs. So and all these things also matters, and it's all about like the integrations. I mean, I would say it all depends on your how the ecosystem, if you are in, you have a Jira, and I mean, a lot of the tools you must be using as well if you want to make kind of some good workflows to make it easier for everyone to follow as part of your ecosystem. Then yeah, I mean, like or then you need to think about these integrations and all. And I believe, like, if the tools are really good and happening and all, some or the other way people will come up with integrations for sure. At least
Yeah,
today, I mean, it's open source, like, you have an active community around it, and I'm sure like people will come up with some or the other way. And if not, maybe you can create your own. It's all, end of the day, it's all APIs underneath, which is going to happen if you want to integrate with any of the tools. So yeah.
got it. Understood. Let's take another audience question here. Um, let's take from someone new. Yeah, I think this we have answered. Attempted already. There was one from Dharmendra also. Yeah. Now this is a fundamental question again, being asked hundreds of times, but still, this is for your take on this. A lot of people have answered this. A lot of people have questioned this. In a project where there is regularly changing requirement, how do we decide when to automate? Now, this is a universal question. Everybody asks this question, right? But we want to understand your take on this.
Right. I even I faced this a lot in my projects as well, at least, right? So there is a at least I have the control on the how the the flow of these things happen, the requirements, then later creating, I mean, developing the feature and shipping into production. At least I have that control. So what ideally I did is that, suppose you have a new feature, what we ideally do is that for the backend at least, there is a, obviously developer starts create a branch for the feature branch, we call it, right, for any new feature. So in the feature branch, developer writes the code, and the RSDs, they start automating those scenarios around it in the same branch. So you have the source code, and you also have the test code pushed in. So whenever a PR is raised, both goes together. Once those passes, only then it's going to merge to the developer branch. Then at least I have the sanitation already done in the, once the code is already pushed. So yeah, I mean, see, it's if it is too if there is no clarity and all, the automation comes into the picture only for the regression part of it, at least for the front end, at least, right? For the back end, at least, the things are, the turnaround is faster. For unit test and API test, the turnaround is faster. You can just keep it as the pace how our development happening. But at least for the end to end, the UI test, it's rigorous cycles, right? So it's better to wait till the feature is stable enough, and only then pick it up, rather than, like, just doing it and changing it back every single time.
Got it. So my next question is okay now lot of okay now this is not in the list, right? But what is your view on documentation on a tool, right? There are tools which come with great documentations,
Right.
but still a lot of us don't read it. So what
Mhm.
is your step to motivate people, okay, that read the documentation and how do you motivate your team members to read the documentation more? Because a lot of our answers, which we ask
Mhm.
ChatGPT or Google, are written in documentation. So how do you motivate people to read more documentation?
Uh, I totally agree. Like, people even probably the team. I mean, you can see at least there are some there are some problems which you have already solved with your experience, right? I mean, if the coding examples and all, right? If you have coming up, if you're facing an problem in while doing automation, you might have solved it. Then probably you make documentation within for yourself. So at least at least my end, I created those blocks, internal blocks for the team and all. At least that helps. And there are some clear set of rules which I put in, like, within the people as well, to make their playwright code effective. So like, we don't wait for these elements to be visible and all. We intercept the API calls and wait for the API call to be done. Only then we go and interact with the browser. So that's one kind of way which you don't know, you need not worry about the element interaction and all. And then later there is a retry mechanism which you can implement in Playwright automatically. That something. So there are certain ways which you can do, and these are all published in a blog for internal blogs. I'll see if I can probably make it public. I'm not sure, but yeah. So all these blocks internally helps our team to at least to get the things done faster. So if there is any new good problem, again, like within based on the client, if any new problem comes in, obviously it is challenging for me as well. I'll try to solve it. Then again, I try to document it. But the other individuals and all. So there are some things, even if you're following the documentation, there are some things, some I feel like things are not documented enough as well. Then later you don't know how to solve those problems. Then obviously, what ideally I do is that I go to GitHub for Playwright and Cypress and try to look for the implementation, how it is done. Then based on that, I can come up with, okay, fine, now this is implementation. Then maybe uh, we can to do a turnaround, or bypass it some or the other way we can do it. So that's what I generally do. But yeah, it's not just about documentation as well. Again, like, people consuming it also matters sometimes, because the examples, whatever the documentation give, might not be enough for you to also to consume it in a real life, right? So documentation helps to get a grasp of the APIs, the features. I mean the methods, whatever they are. But generally, it also, you need to also have that. Unless you face a problem, you're not going to come up with a solution out for that anyway.
God. This is the question from Dharmendra again. Oh, sorry. Just a minute, please. By mistake, marked it as answered. Just a minute.
Someone asked
Um,
a Cypress question actually.
where? I think in the Q&A tab. Okay, I'll take this question, then you can take this
Mhm.
next one. Just a minute, please. Yeah. So this is a question from Dharmendra again. Are there any specific tools better suited for testing in specific tech stack, like let's say a website or a React site or banking or e-commerce? Are there like go-to tools for tech stacks for domains, things like that? Do you
It's
have
all
any thought?
again, yeah, it's all front end, so it doesn't matter. Like, end of the day, see the frameworks, the WordPress or React. End of the day, it's how you develop the application. But once it is came out of on the visual part, it's all HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So it doesn't matter. You don't need to worry about. But so you can use any these web tools. It doesn't make any difference. Like, you can use any of them. I don't, at least as per my knowledge, at least I haven't seen anything specifically which will solve the word, but specially made for WordPress at least. So
Got it.
yeah, I mean, any tools will be fine. That's not a big problem.
Got it. Understood. Then I'll take my next question. Okay, which is on. Uh, can you elaborate on the significance of community support when selecting a tool, and how
Hmm.
does it affect the learning curve?
Hmm. Good question. So, see, any tools right now. the tools which just started will not have much of the support because again, like, there should be some extra push. Probably it can be new features, or it can be sales and marketing or whatever it is, but at least the people need to start picking it up. Only then, like, you will getting exposure for those tools. I mean, take for example playwright, right? I mean, it's been it came up in like 2020, like it's been 4 years, but people started talking about probably a year ago. What I mean, it's been there already, right? So the buzz is going on because it's better. It's not I mean, Cypress was already there, uh, right? So uh, I'm sorry, like, what was the question again? Like,
Community support, the importance of community support.
okay, right. For the new tools, at least you don't get the community support. It takes a time for people to come up with the plugins or those kind of things. And at least at the moment, at least if you can compare, Cypress has really good plugins compared to Playwright. People also need to come up with. So, and if the tool is really good and is solving a lot of use cases for everyone, I'm sure like people will be coming up with the blogs and examples. A lot of stuff already happens in online, right? So just keep watching out, join the Discord channels, and I mean, then you can, like, learn it from there itself. Like,
Got it. Understood. My next question is community support is done. Okay. Yeah. How do startups or smaller teams make a decision choosing the right automation tool, where cost is also a very important factor? So, what could be a framework for a startup company or an early stage company where cost is a very important factor, yet being very solid in their decision, right? Just not use cost as a factor. The easier approach will be to use cost as a factor, right? Make a decision. Okay, this is less costly. The learning curve is easy. The manpower cost is less. So let's use this. But how do we not just consider cost as a factor and yet make a good decision for an early stage company?
if you are again, like, suppose end of the day, every startup, if you say, like, they have this roadmap, like what exactly they're going to do probably in the next year, or like, and internally, if you're working in, like, you also know like how good the things are, and even if you say the cost factor also, right? So, and where the roadmap is based on that, if you really want to spend a really good the scalability is very important. So if even if you take up a scale framework at today, then uh, probably over the period of time, like if the framework is not good enough, then your framework will not scale. So you have to also think from that perspective as well going forward, right? So again, if based on the roadmap, things, how the things are working internally, is there a really good need for you to, like, how vast is the application, and how many tests you're going to write over the period of time. Either it can be 500 or 600, maybe just 20 30. Then if it is just 20 30, a small application, again, you can go for this low code no code tools as well. Once you are done, like, there is no active development going on, then that's fine. Like, you can just live with that. But again, if you have a really good roadmap ahead, and over the period of time, tomorrow you might need to go for like 200 to 500, maybe 1000 tests, then again, you have to think from that perspective from day one, how your framework scales, like,
Yeah.
make them independent, make them the test should be idempotent, and how the test data is in, how the test data you're managing the test data, how we are running them in the pipelines. Maybe you can run it in one shot today, probably tomorrow you might need to run it in 10 shots. So you have to think from all these perspectives from designing these frameworks from scratch.
Got it. Understood. Now, this is a question from Anirudh again. We have a very engaging. I'll ask this later. In between, I'll ask this. Okay. Okay. Can you share a case, let's say, a case study where the wrong tool choice led to issues in the testing process?
Hmm. At least in my knowledge, at least it did not happen,
Okay.
because I have a set of rules which I felt like Wrong set of tools again, right? See, I mean, it's already there in the market. Like, people, if you're talking about the API testing, I mean,
Hmm.
I'm just hearing a lot about just Java and REST assured. That's
Hmm.
it. It
Hmm.
doesn't matter what the backend framework is built on, but just they just put the paint the same picture
Ah,
for this, right? And what exactly REST assured? It's just API client. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, you have a lot of other packages and in different languages as well. A lot of libraries which you can do, which does the same. But why people picking up Java and REST assured? So I believe, I don't say it is a kind of a wrong choice. If it is solving their problem, that's fine. But it can be done better. Again, like in my case, I told, like, I run the test as part of pull request, and it is the same language and the same code base. So that won't work if it is my backend is in Node.js and I write the tests in Java and the rest assured. So I believe that's a kind of a wrong choice to make. But it is, as far as my experience, it did not happen yet. Maybe.
got it. Cool. I'll take a few last questions before we end. Okay. This is again from Another. Though the PR for Playwright has really upped in the last 2 years, is it really worth the hype or is it a bubble? Questions from someone who is a well versed in Selenium, Cypress, and WebDriver. Not yet in Playwright.
Should not hitting playwright. Okay, so okay, in that case, if you already know WDIO and Cypress, you are already well worked with JavaScript already, right? So you have your fundamentals strong, and playwright is similar to Puppeteer actually. If you know the Puppeteer syntax, it's same. Like they forked initially from Puppeteer. So even if I mean, it's backed by Microsoft, right? Obviously, so I don't think you should be worrying about like the existence of playwright, at least over the period of time. You can happily go and I mean, embrace it for your next set of things. And I myself a Cypress ambassador, so at least in my case, I have these differences. Like I have and for Cypress, you don't have any alternative. If you want to write component level test, you do have a React testing library and just, but the Cypress, it's amazing if you want to write this unit test, the React unit test, or any other framework unit test. So if your front end developers are going to contribute to component level tests, I'm sure you should go for Cypress, and you can contribute also to the end-to-end test. Again, like you just need to focus on end-to-end tests, and you need developers not going to contribute a lot, then blindly go for Playwright.
Got it. This is done. I think we're good then. We've done all the questions, larger questions we've done. I think some of them were specific questions which you can probably ignore for now. And people ask in the chat. So I think that's it. This was a quick one. And I think your answers were crisp and effective to people. People would love to hear some feedback from people. There's a form here. And I think Ravi would echo with me that okay, that we need feedback for the test type to improve, for Ravi to improve. I think the feedback is very important. So the form is plugged here. Please feel free to use it and give your feedback. Uh, any last questions which somebody has, happy to take.
I hope I answered them very well. I mean, the first time coming in, so
No worries, no worries.
I'm
There's
making it.
always a
Please
there's
excuse
always
me.
there is always a first time. No worries, no worries.
Yeah,
Cool. Then I think we're good. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks such late on a festival day. I know it's festival for some of us in northern India. But thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed the session. And thank you, Ravi, for taking time out. And
it was all
Ravi is now very active on LinkedIn. He's doing some interesting work with unit testing. So please go and follow him on LinkedIn and see the knowledge which he's trying to spread and probably find some synergies together. And that's it. So I'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much, Ravi, for tuning in.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.